Throughout history, the world has seen incredible figures who changed the course of humanity forever. But behind the iconic portraits and legendary achievements, there are unbelievable stories you've probably never heard. Hello everyone, and welcome to Fancy Fact Channel. Today we're diving into 10 mind-blowing facts about famous historical figures. Some will surprise you, some will shock you, and all of them will leave you amazed. Let's jump right in. When you think of Albert Einstein, you probably imagine a wild-haired genius scribbling complex equations on a chalkboard. But did you know that one of the world's greatest minds had a very peculiar and rather clumsy hobby? Einstein absolutely loved sailing. He wasn't good at it, not even close, but he loved it passionately. Despite the fact that he never learned how to swim, Einstein would often take his small sailboat, which he affectionately named Tinnef, a Yiddish word meaning worthless, out onto the open waters. And let's just say, it didn't always go smoothly. Time and time again, Einstein would capsize his boat, needing help to get back ashore. Yet, he was never embarrassed. In fact, he treated these little accidents with laughter and curiosity, much like he approached complex physics problems. Interestingly, Einstein claimed that some of his best thinking happened while he was adrift on the water. He loved the solitude, the gentle rocking of the waves, and the absence of worldly distractions. It was in these moments, floating aimlessly, that he contemplated the mysteries of the universe. So next time you feel like you're lost or drifting, just remember, even Einstein needed a little chaos to spark brilliance. Napoleon Bonaparte, the military mastermind who struck fear into the hearts of European kings, once faced an enemy he couldn't outmaneuver, a horde of fluffy rabbits. Here's what happened. After signing a peace treaty, Napoleon decided to celebrate with a grand rabbit hunt for himself and his top generals. His chief of staff, wanting to impress, organized a massive event, gathering reportedly hundreds, if not thousands, of rabbits. The plan was simple: release the rabbits into a field, let Napoleon and his guests have some fun chasing them, and return victorious. But something went hilariously wrong. As soon as the cages were opened, the rabbits didn't scatter in fear. Instead, they charged, not away from Napoleon, but toward him. Dozens, then hundreds of rabbits swarmed his feet, leaping onto his legs, and even trying to climb up his coat. At first, it was funny. Then it became chaos. Napoleon and his generals tried to shoo them away, but the rabbits were relentless. Some reports even say that the rabbits mistook Napoleon and his men for people bringing food, because, unbeknownst to the organizers, many of the rabbits were domesticated and used to being fed by humans. In the end, the great conqueror had no choice but to retreat, fleeing the battlefield, chased by an army of bunnies. So yes, Napoleon conquered Europe, but he lost the Battle of the Bunnies. When we hear the name Cleopatra, we instantly imagine the exotic Queen of Egypt, golden headdresses, the Nile River, and ancient pyramids in the background. But here's the twist that blows most people's minds. Cleopatra wasn't Egyptian at all. Cleopatra VII, the famous queen known for her beauty, intelligence, and dramatic love affairs with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, was actually of Greek descent. She belonged to the Ptolemaic dynasty, a family of Macedonian Greeks who ruled Egypt after Alexander the Great's death. Her ancestor, Ptolemy Isoter, was one of Alexander's trusted generals, and his descendants clung tightly to their Greek roots. In fact, for nearly 300 years, the Ptolemies ruled Egypt without even bothering to learn the Egyptian language. They lived like Greek royalty in a foreign land, speaking Greek, practicing Greek customs, and often marrying within the family to preserve their bloodline. But Cleopatra was different. She broke tradition by learning the Egyptian language, becoming the first of her dynasty to do so. She embraced Egyptian religion, styled herself as the reincarnation of the goddess Isis, and worked tirelessly to connect with her people. So while Cleopatra ruled Egypt and became a symbol of its culture, her bloodline traced straight back to ancient Greece. A Greek queen ruling an Egyptian empire. Talk about a plot twist in history. Ludwig van Beethoven, a name that echoes through concert halls and music history books. He's remembered as one of the greatest composers to ever live, crafting symphonies so powerful they still move audiences centuries later. But behind this genius was a heartbreaking secret. At the height of his career, Beethoven began losing his hearing. By his late 20s, he noticed the first signs: a ringing in his ears, difficulty hearing conversations. And over the next decade, it only got worse, until he was almost completely deaf. For most people, losing hearing would have meant the end of a musical career. But not for Beethoven. He refused to surrender to silence. Instead, he adapted. Beethoven used ingenious techniques to keep composing, one of which involved clenching a wooden stick between his teeth and touching it to the piano. He could feel the vibrations of the notes resonating through his jawbone. He also kept notebooks where friends and visitors would write down what they wanted to say because he could no longer hear their voices. Despite this immense challenge, Beethoven composed some of his greatest masterpieces during this period, including the legendary Ninth Symphony, which features the Ode to Joy. Think about it, one of the most uplifting musical pieces in human history, written by a man who couldn't even hear it with his own ears. Beethoven's story is the ultimate proof that human spirit and creativity can overcome even the most impossible odds. Abraham Lincoln was a champion wrestler. When you picture Abraham Lincoln, you probably imagine the tall, solemn figure in a black suit, delivering profound speeches like the Gettysburg Address. But what if I told you that Honest Abe had a wild, tough side you've probably never heard about? Before becoming America's 16th president, Lincoln was a force to be reckoned with in the wrestling ring. Growing up on the rough frontiers of Indiana and Illinois, Lincoln developed incredible physical strength through hard farm work. He stood at an impressive 6'4", towering over most men of his time, and he knew exactly how to use that to his advantage. Lincoln wasn't just a casual brawler, he became a local legend. It's recorded that he participated in nearly 300 matches and lost only once. Imagine that one of history's greatest leaders was also nearly unbeatable in hand-to-hand combat. He was known for his quick wit and even quicker moves, using strategy and strength to dominate his opponents. One famous story tells of a match where Lincoln lifted his rival high off the ground and threw him flat on his back in seconds. Because of his reputation, Lincoln was even inducted into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. Yes, that's a real honor he holds. So next time you think of Lincoln as just a wise president, remember, he could have pinned you to the ground in about 3 seconds flat. He painted the Mona Lisa, conceptualized helicopters centuries before they existed, studied anatomy, and dreamed of machines flying through the skies. But did you know he also had a mind-blowing physical talent? Leonardo could write with one hand, while drawing with the other at the same exact time. This incredible ability, called mirror writing, allowed him to write perfectly in reverse with one hand, as if creating a reflection. Some historians believe he did this to keep his scientific notes private or simply to challenge his extraordinary brain. Imagine the mental coordination it would take. Your right hand sketching intricate designs for a flying machine, while your left hand jots down scientific observations simultaneously. Modern studies suggest that Leonardo's brain may have been highly lateralized, meaning both sides of his brain worked together in ways most of us can't even imagine. It's part of what made him not just a great artist or scientist, but one of the rarest types of geniuses in history. Today, when experts look at his notebooks, filled with backwards handwriting and brilliant sketches, they marvel at not just the content, but how it was physically possible for a human to create such a thing. Leonardo wasn't just ahead of his time, he was operating in a league of his own. Napoleon wasn't actually short, detailed version. When you hear the name Napoleon Bonaparte, what comes to mind? Probably a brilliant but short-tempered and short military leader, right? Well, here's a shocking truth. Napoleon wasn't actually short at all. At the time of his death in 1821, Napoleon's height was recorded at about 5 feet 2 inches, but that's in French feet, not the English measurement we use today. When converted, he was actually around 5 feet 6 or 5 feet 7 inches tall, about average height for a Frenchman of his era. So where did this short Napoleon myth come from? Some historians suggest it was British propaganda during the Napoleonic Wars. The British, who were locked in bitter conflict with France, portrayed Napoleon as a small, petty tyrant to mock and belittle him in the eyes of Europe. Others believe it was simply a misunderstanding between the French and British measurement systems. In truth, among his soldiers and contemporaries, Napoleon was seen as a strong, commanding figure. And ironically, he often surrounded himself with towering bodyguards, making him seem shorter by comparison. So next time someone calls someone having a Napoleon complex, meaning overcompensating for short stature, just remember, the real Napoleon didn't need to overcompensate for anything. Albert Einstein was offered the presidency of Israel. Albert Einstein, the wild-haired physicist who changed the world's understanding of space, time, and energy. You know him for E=mc² and the theory of relativity. But what you might not know is that he was once offered a presidency. In 1952, after the death of Israel's first president, Chaim Weizmann, the young nation found itself in need of a new symbolic leader. And who better than one of the most brilliant and most admired Jews in the world? The Israeli government formally approached Einstein, offering him the role of president of Israel, an honorary but deeply symbolic position. Think about that for a moment. A man of pure science and theory being asked to lead a country at a critical moment in its history. But Einstein, ever the humble thinker, politely declined. He believed he lacked the necessary skills and experience for political leadership. In his response, he said, "I am deeply moved by the offer, but at the same time, saddened and ashamed that I cannot accept it." Einstein felt his entire life had been devoted to objective thinking and scholarly pursuits, not political administration. He continued, however, to support Israel and Jewish causes with great passion from afar. Imagine an alternate history where Albert Einstein became a head of state. The world might have looked very different. Cleopatra lived closer to the moon landing than to the building of the pyramids. When you think of Cleopatra, Egypt's last pharaoh, your mind probably jumps straight to ancient pyramids, massive monuments, and the dawn of civilization. But here's a fact that will totally bend your perception of time. Cleopatra lived closer to the moon landing than to the building of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Let's break it down. The Great Pyramid was built around 2560 BC. Cleopatra was born in 69 BC. The Apollo 11 moon landing happened in 1969 AD. If you do the math, Cleopatra lived about 2,500 years after the pyramid was built, but only about 2,000 years before humans walked on the moon. It's crazy to think about. To Cleopatra, the pyramids were already ancient relics, just like how we today view ancient Roman ruins or medieval castles. She might have looked at the pyramids with the same awe and mystery we feel now. They weren't part of her Egypt's present. They were part of its deep, distant past. This stunning fact reminds us, history isn't just one long timeline. It's layers and layers of civilizations, each marveling at the achievements of those who came long before. Which one blew your mind the most? Was it Napoleon's not-so-short height, or Cleopatra being closer to the moon landing than the pyramids? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoyed diving into these hidden stories with us, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe for more amazing facts, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an adventure through history. This is Fancy Fact, where the past comes alive in ways you never expected. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.